Welcome to Bridging the Gap. I'm your host, Bria Baker. In this episode, we're speaking with talent and creatives from the beloved Walt Disney Animation Studios film, Encanto, about perspective, understanding, and healing within multi-generational families.
It's that push and pull of the different generational expectations of what you want to do versus what is expected of you.
All of the expectations that we feel on our shoulders goes down to our family just wants to see us happy.
The more that you find yourself, the more that you're unafraid to also be yourself with your family.
I am so excited to be joined by Jasmine Reed, Adassa, voice of Dolores, and Juan Pablo Reyes. Welcome to Bridging the Gap.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for being here. So today we're going to be discussing what we can take from the Madrigal family, especially when it comes to perspective and learning to understand ourselves and also our family members. So before we get into all of that, though, I would love to hear from each of you a favorite memory from this Encanto journey.
It's really hard to pick one. I've been on the project for almost 3 years, so I've seen every version that we put together story-wise.
Wow.
And just the overall experience of seeing the family change in story, change in characters, change in voices has just been amazing. But I think one that will always feel like one of my favorite days is when we heard We Don't Talk About Bruno with every voice in there from our talent. I mean, the goosebumps were just unreal.
I can only imagine. And you were sitting on that. You're just like, oh, they don't even know what we're about to put out there. Yeah.
Because like she's saying, when we heard it, it was Lin-Manuel on Lin-Manuel with Lin-Manuel in the background. So we didn't know what it was going to end up sounding like. All we knew was just your part. That's all you really knew. And when I heard it, I was like, this is an awesome song. Yes. Everybody's telling their stories.
You were sharing something really special about getting to share this experience with your daughter.
I did. I mean, I was cast in this film, and just to be in the room with these people, it was an incredible experience. But then when I got to be with my daughter, she was cast as one of the town kids, and I was changing her sides, and I'm all there on the floor, and she's acting like a boss. And she did such an amazing job to be a part of that.
I have 2 moments that are jumping into me. One of them is hearing Dos Oruguitas for the first time. To me, that's amazing. And hearing it in Spanish and knowing that they were gonna actually do it in Spanish was pretty special. And then the other one's when I early on when I read the first outline and saw that there was a character named Isabella because one of my nieces and my goddaughter's name is Isabella. Not related, it was it was a huge coincidence, but I got very excited that she will get a Disney heroine that has her name.
Yeah, and that representation is so important too, especially for young girls and women. And I think I would love to jump into that next question I have. With the Madrigals, we see matriarchy. We see a strong woman at the helm of this family really guiding it. It feels so authentic and so beautiful. Why was it important to each of you that there be this Colombian multi-generational family with a woman at the center?
Well, I can tell you a little bit of where that came from because they explore very different versions of what this story could be. But when they shared some of those ideas with one of our consultants, Alejandra Espinosa, she was the ones no, it can't be a guy or a patriarch, it needs to be a matriarch. That was the moment that I saw the directors really pivot. So it was definitely a process of discovery and understanding of how the culture works.
So it was such an intentional choice.
Yes,
such an intentional
it was
choice.
very intentional.
And so were you a part of some of those earlier conversations? What was that like for you to see that this was the kind of project you were going to get to work on?
Well, I remember the day they told me I was going to be on the project. Just to be on it for any capacity, I was like, this is very surreal. What a Latinx family-based Disney film. I have to be a part of this. But something that we did that was very unique on this project was that we had a consultant group within the studio that we called Familia. So it was a bunch of the Latinx employees at the studio. And I think this, Juan Pablo, you could correct me, I think it was before that first script was really there that our writers and directors would meet with us. And first of all, for our community, it's very intimidating to go into a room where you might know some people, but not everyone, and be like, let me pour my heart about what it's like to be me and my family. But there was some magic in that room with our directors that they made us feel so comfortable. So we started to share. And the idea of your grandmother kind of leading your family was one of those things that we cracked open, and everyone's like this, oh, that's my abuela, that's my tia. it really made the story authentic in that way because so many of us were sharing it regardless if we were Colombian or not. So I think bringing that authenticity to it really strengthened the story as it was getting developed.
And you are Colombian,
I
so
am.
how authentic did it feel?
It literally was like my family story because my father lost his dad when he was 9 years old. And so his grandmother had to be that person. So I understood my grandmother's struggle. So to see that in a film, how much grandma has to hold it together and why sometimes there's secrets, because she's like, I don't want my house to fall apart. So let's not have these conversations. Let's put a pin on it and let's just eat and survive. Like, I understand that is sometimes why we're so scared of going into these deep conversations. But yeah, it hit home hard. I was like, I told my dad, I was like, I understand abuela now. My family's origin story starts with my own abuela. She wanted to be a singer. She was an Afro-Latina in Colombia, but for her, during her time, that was an impossibility. Then it was my mother's dream. She got as far as having a little group and she played the guitar, but again, it was out of reach. But then it came to me. And I was one of the first Afro-Latinas to be signed to a major record label, but it was an uphill climb because being a woman, being Afro-Latina in this business was not easy. And then came Encanto, opening a new door where they didn't just see us as Latinos, but appreciate and really bring to light the beauty of being an Afro-Latina. And then it went one more generation to my own daughter, who was also cast in this film. So to have 4 generations of love, of music, and having ourselves seen on the big screen come to life because of this film means everything. It's fulfilling a joy, a dream that we never thought would come true.
Encanto has connected with people in such a deep, personal family level. How has it felt to see it embraced in that way? And did you anticipate, like, oh yeah, I can tell how it's gonna hit? Or were you still surprised by how much it resonated?
I don't think we really knew when we were making it. I think we hoped for the best, but I think we all poured so much of ourselves into it and our hearts into it that I think is really why people are connecting so much with the film.
I knew. I literally, I was like, I looked over at when we were taking our family photo at Jared Bush and Byron Howard. I was like, you understand this is gonna change everyone's life. And they were just like, yeah. I'm like, no. There's like Latinos portrayed the way they are. It wasn't just a magical story. It was a real story with a magical outcome.
What was really cool to me, to be honest, is of course it connected to all of the Latino, Latinx, and Latina community, but it was also pretty special to see it go beyond that. Seeing like a Latinx or Latino property be mainstream and have people from all over the world and different communities see themselves in characters that appear Latinx and culturally Latinx, it's pretty cool, you know? And I feel like a lot of people from the community grew up seeing themselves in other characters that they didn't necessarily belong to that community. I loved Ariel, for example, and I'm neither female or a redhead or anything like that, or a mermaid. But it's really cool to see something that feels closer to home, you know?
I love that so much. It definitely has been that way. And I think it's a testament to the research that we've heard has been so intensive and intentional. What was that process like? Because it is, again, a film about family. So how do you research family dynamics and the culture?
Part of it is what Jazz was talking about starting with the internal folks. But we also, I mean, at Disney Animation, we go in the consultants. Like we really look for consultants that can bring perspective in any capacity. So of course we had the Colombian Cultural Trust that we helped build that brought in that perspective, that authenticity from the country, from Adassa's country. But we also had other consultants, like we had therapists come in and talk about family roles. What is the golden child, the rock of the family? Like all of those things were actually researched and looked at with detail.
And you can feel that through the characters. That's so interesting. I never would have thought that there would be therapists part of a creative process, but it shows in the dialogue too. So yeah, what was your sort of role in that research, and what was maybe one moment of the research process that really stood out as like, we're getting this right?
I think in how much all the members of the Familia group wanted to be vulnerable in that room with sharing with our director, sometimes before a script was there, or even if it was like past screening one, but we know there's a lot of room for change. I'll give my example. You know, I shared in the room about that push and pull of like doing what you want to do versus the expectations that your family puts on you because of this community. Like in the Latinx community, usually you stay home or you don't go to school or college very far away from your family, yet there's the expectation to take care of your family. And I told the group that I got a scholarship from Chicago to California, and my mother told me not to go. And then when I started working at Disney, which is still in California, my grandmother still tells me, you can quit your job, come here, I will cook and clean, and you don't have to pay rent. And it's super sweet, but I was just telling them that, like, even, you know, in my 20s and my 30s, it's that still push and pull of the different generational expectations of what you want to do versus what is expected of you. So we would share things very deeply about that and the complexity of a family in those family group sessions.
And I think that's what an authentic story takes, is that level of vulnerability. Do you think that that comes from feeling like a sense of responsibility to telling a story that will really be relatable to a lot of people? Or where does that sense of duty to, like, we've got to go deep on this one?
I think for me, because I've been on the project for so long, there's always a sense of, like, I have to give it my all and be completely honest with it, because I know the power it could be for someone else.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, I used to text our producer Yvette all of the time, like, we're doing it for the little brown boys and girls when the days are really hard, because it was like, we have to give it our all. We have to push it to be extremely authentic and true and honest because of the impact it could have for other people.
The way that everybody poured their hearts is reflected in each character. Because when you see a Luisa and you feel like, I mean, I have 7 kids. I feel pressure. Pressure like a drip, drip, drip. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you see that character and you go, I understand what it is that you need to be strong. But inside, you just feel like, can I just ride a unicorn donkey today and just be happy with the world? But then if you are in your family and you're going, I don't know what my gift is, and you feel like Mirabel, or you feel the expectations of, I have to be perfect like Isabela. But in the reality, when it gets down to it, when everything crumbles, and I love that part with Lin-Manuel writing the most incredible song at the end, and I was just crying, is the miracle is you, not some gift, just you. I think that all of the expectations that we feel on our shoulders goes down to our family just wants to see us happy. They just want to see us fulfilled.
I think that's so special, is even for other projects where it feels like unprecedented representation, there still feels like there's just like this one protagonist that has the burden of being representative of the entire community, right? And so it's like, okay, well, now if I don't relate to that one main character, then there's nothing for me here. But with the Madrigals, you have 12 family members. It's like, if you don't see yourself in this one, you will see yourself in another one. So you kind of answered this a little bit, but which Madrigal do you think you're most like, and why?
Oh, I am definitely Dolores.
Yeah.
I am definitely Dolores. Oh my goodness.
Did you feel that before you were cast as Dolores, or was it something that you came into?
Oh, I knew it. I mean, what she represents, just even out of the image of who she is, it made me love my curls more. It made me love who I am, my skin tone, because the way that they portrayed the mom and dad is very similar to my own dad. My dad is very dark-skinned, and my mom is lighter-skinned. And then who she is, she's quiet, but she has all the information. I mean, she knows a lot. She doesn't add to the flavor. And I think she comes from a place of love, and she just wants to give what she has of gift to her family. But she also has her own dreams that may or may not come true, that she has to struggle with. One of the scenes that impacted me the most was when they were sitting at the table. Because growing up, you know, dark-skinned Latinos, they would be in the backgrounds, they'd be dancers, they'd be the nannies, but to have it be a principal character, and I'm sitting across Mirabel as Dolores, you know, and they're having that moment of like,
It's amazing.
and just to see that, we're all sitting at a table together and we're all equals, and there's a place for our children to say, oh my goodness, I have a place here too. And I'm like, yes, dream big. It's time to dream big.
Wow, that's so special that you got to actually voice the character that you're most like. What about you two, though?
For me, it's definitely Mirabel, because I think when the 90 or something minutes, you see her journey of her relationship with imposter syndrome is so point on to like my journey with just working in the entertainment industry. Like she starts off wanting to be or just like things that her family doesn't really understand, so they kind of see her as different. And then when she gets this moment of like, maybe I can save the family, but she's like, maybe not. It really requires that moment where Bruno's like, no, it's you. It is not about Isabella embracing you. It's about you. You save the family. And having the courage to stand up to her abuela to be like, this is me and this is okay and I should be accepted. So I go through that so much of like, oh, do I deserve to be here? And that comes with a lot of, you know, generational trauma is probably what is resulting in that, right? Because if I don't see myself or people who look like me in the spaces I'm trying to enter, I don't have the self-esteem to be like, I should be there, I deserve to be there.
Exactly.
Or should I even think about wanting to be in that space? So for me, it's definitely Maribel, because at the end, she's accepted and she fully embraces who she is.
For me, I guess a little bit of Mirabel too, being the baby of the family, and kind of like everyone else before you is already so great and cool, and like what's left for me type of thing. And then the other one is Bruno, being a part of the LGBTQ plus community. I see a lot of myself reflected in him, like living in the shadows, like kind of like your gift or the reality of who you are, being like something maybe uncomfortable for a lot of people when you're growing up is definitely something that I can relate to. But I also can relate to the family overcoming that and welcoming you with open arms, and then being a part of the family unit. Yeah. That moment where the two sisters hug him is so beautiful and special. Since I was a kid, whenever someone approached me and asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, my answer was always, I want to work at Disney. But of course, time passes, I became something else, and being in Mexico, I felt a little removed from all of the situation. So when I actually was able to pivot with actually the support of my parents, I was able to come over to LA and landed this job at Disney. And in my first day, I was coming into this room to learn that I was gonna work in a story in Latin America that encapsulates that idea of what it meant to be Latina and Latino was super special and momentous to me. And then flash forwards to the moment when the movie got released into theaters, and my father being proud and excited felt so connected to the way that the grandmother character is proud of Mirabel in the movie at the end. It meant the world to me. It was everything I needed to hear, that kind of my expectations and his expectations have finally met.
There's obviously conversations that were not happening in the Madrigal family. How can other families get to that place of healing and wholeness that the Madrigals got to by the end of the film?
They need to understand that the only way that those conversations are going to happen is that if we all allow each other the safe space of having them. When we both give ourselves that privilege of safety, of saying, I'm gonna love you no matter what your story is, and I will listen, and please give me the same courtesy to listen to my perspective. Because they were at first blaming each other. You're the one that's destroying the magic. And she's like, what are you doing? Everything was fine before you, and the colors, look at this, look at it, look at her. And it's like, no, this is who she is. This is what she's been hiding, and you're just making it hard. And when we just stop pointing the fingers at each other and just listen, then we understand we're not here to attack, we're here to share. And healing can only take place if you feel safe. This is a place where everything you say is gonna be heard and respected, and I'm not gonna use it against you. So if you don't feel it's a double-edged sword, but it's coming from a place of understanding, then you open your heart. In Spanish, there's this thing that is called dar pancita. It's like when a kitty cat, if you want to rub it, if he trusts you, he'll turn and give the belly, just like puppies, because it's the most sensitive area of the animal. So if you don't know the animal, like do it with a puppy or a kitty cat, try to turn him over and it's like, I don't know you like that. So we need to dar pancita, give the belly so that we can all come to that loving place.
That and open up.
I think it also starts with, how did we get here? Like sitting down with your elders and be like, tell me the story. Because I think there's a lot of times the older generation skips telling the story, or they don't want to tell the painful story
Yada,
to the
yada,
kids.
yada, and now we're here.
Exactly. So I think it starts with like sitting down, grab a cup of coffee, and just be like to your grandmother, how did we get here? And then I think you start to really see how their story impacts how you've been raised and the traits that you have. And I think that's where it comes into generational trauma healing at that point.
The flip side of that is when you're born into a family where it's all built and they feel like they know your essence of like who you were when you were little, but then they don't get to see the full movie, So you go out into the world and you become something else. And then how do you bring that back and tell them, oh, by the way, you know that part of me, but you don't know all of these other things that I've discovered over time. And I think allowing for those safe spaces of like, let me share all of these discoveries of who I've become.
Yeah, ooh, that's so important. Have y'all found that being a part of this project or even seeing the final project has changed how you show up in your families?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, Bria, I know now to listen more and talk less. Like, I listen more to my mom, I listen more, and I ask them the stories. Tell me the stories, because I know soon enough those stories, if they're not told, they will go away. And I want them to hug my kids. And little things like, even if it's like, you can't walk around without socks in the house, you know what I mean? Those little things that they bring to the family dynamic. And so it allows me to feel joy, to hear of experiences that I didn't go through. Like you're saying, Juan Pablo, it's like, I didn't go through that. I don't know you when I'm not with you. And you're having experiences, and that knowledge, I want to be able to gain it and understand it. And so I love that, what you said. Yeah, we go on in the world and we change. And we need to reintroduce ourselves to our families all the time.
I love what you're saying about being more present with the family. I feel like the more that you find yourself and accept yourself, the more that you're like unafraid to also be yourself with your family. And the more that you're able to also ask the questions and listen. And it just comes with confidence and security, the more that you're able to like mark your path in the world. And then you're like, so how are you doing? What's up with your journey, you know? And like being able to just be honest about it is really cool.
Sometimes it's interesting though, like when you start to transform your own behaviors, you take on a new role in the family. So even like being someone who like listens more and asks more questions, now suddenly the family is like constantly expecting you to mediate for them. Or like you're the family member who's like, I can go and be my full self and like ask you questions or tell you things that maybe I'm nervous bring me shame, but then through you I get permission. So has being a part of Encanto changed the way that you see your role in your family?
I try to show up with more empathy. I think just going through the film and watching it so many times, like whenever someone wants to talk or even to vent, you know, sometimes you get a phone call and you're in the middle of doing 10 different things and you're like, do I pick up? It's like, yes, you pick up and you listen with empathy because you don't fully understand what's going on with the other person on that phone call, especially your family.
It's so true. After we finish up here, I'm gonna call my mom back. Definitely owe her.
I love you.
The first time the creatives and I saw the cut of the film was very emotional. It also felt very authentic in the way that Abuela treated the other characters. I remember seeing my mom and how she took care of Mirabel. And I remember seeing myself in Mirabel and the journey that she was going on. The family of Encanto is similar to mine because there's so many different shades of brown, so many different hair textures. We're not all the same, but very different, but we still come from the same community. I'm expecting a daughter of my own for the first time, and I can't wait to show her this film. I hope Encanto is something she can use to believe in herself, to realize that she could be the protagonist in her own story and all of her dreams and goals are possible, where she can see her family on screen authentically, beautifully, magically. And I'm excited for her to grow up in a world where she has this film to show her that everything is possible with the love of your family.
So, how do y'all hope that stories like Encanto will inspire future Latinx storytellers?
I hope more generations just feel like they can, and they have permission to, and they're encouraged to tell their own stories. Like there's so many stories still left to tell. There's so many smaller communities within the Latinx community that I really just hope we see a lot more of it in the future.
It doesn't matter if you have a big budget or not. Technology today has the ability to reach all over the world. So if you are feeling like you have a particular story to tell, there are so many eyes that can also relate, that can feel like, I relate to this story, I can see myself in this story. And there are so many people that are so gifted that have not been seen. You know, the mic has not been passed to them. In Colombia alone, there's almost 5 million Afro-Latinos. Imagine how many stories, things that I've never heard of, you know? So I think that it goes for so many people can find a voice, they can find a platform. And it's wanted because look at what Encanto did. So many people have gravitated to the music. They crave it. So then now we're like, okay, well, I got the guts now. Forget this imposter syndrome thing. Let's do it. So it's really fired me out even to tell my own story, even to my kids. And I'm like, I didn't even know it was important to talk about the good and the bad and the not so nice and the not so great. And so a lot of healing can happen when we tell our stories because when we say it out loud, it makes it real. It makes us accept our realities as dark or as good as they can be. And then it gives place for other people to also embrace themselves fully.
And I guess for me, with movies like Encanto and Coco that are like huge, and I think, you know, like so many people can relate to, I feel like it's normalizing, hopefully, that like it can be a story about like a Latinx community and that everyone will see themselves. And then on the other hand, us that were I guess, somewhat a part of the entertainment community, like extending our hand to the next people and the next generation, and like passing the knowledge and like embracing and always mentoring and bringing up the people from the community that are around you.
Yeah.
I think that's super important.
I don't want this conversation to end, so I kind of want to like belabor asking this last question, but I guess I'll get this out. How would you like to see Encanto continue to inspire conversations within families?
I hope this is the family's favorite movie. Like in my head, it's a rainy day. The family's like, let's make some fresh popcorn, and they watch it together. And it could be the first time, it could be the 100th time. And then they lead to a conversation of, wow, I'm like this person, or I'm like that person, or well, how did we get here? Like, I just hope that it continues to be a vehicle to create a vulnerable, safe space to have conversation.
Because every time you watch a movie, you find new things. And especially with Encanto, like the bigger scenes, you're just like, wait, what's happening in that corner over there? Like, there's always something to take your eyes and say, oh, wait, I'm seeing this character in a new light based on where I'm at in life or what I'm noticing this time.
I think that life is an evolution, and every character has such a distinctive, different place in their journey that as kids grow up, as we grow up, as we learn more, you can really see yourself in different characters as you move through your own life. So it's like constantly reintroducing yourself to yourself, and you're like, wow, I'm a lot like Abuela now, my goodness. Or I've even found that my girls, it brought us together on making arepas. Just a little detail where they sprinkle that salt right on top of the arepa. That it was such a small detail, but you do that. And when I saw this film, one of the things that we did, like watching it like for the 24th time, I was like, we're gonna watch it and we're gonna make arepas together. And then our arepas have evolved from just the traditional ones. Now we put chorizo because my husband is Mexican. So las arepas is like arepa con queso, chorizo. My mom's like, what is this? I'm like, it's a Mexican Colombian arepa now. So it's really nice to be able to always find something in which can become a conversation and different parts of time as time rolls by.
What about you, to close this out?
Well, I think going to what Jazz was saying, I love the idea of the family watching it together. I know it's unconventional, even though it has El Día de las Velitas, which is during the holiday season. Encanto should become a holiday classic. You know, like the whole family during like Christmas holidays watching it together. It actually like went into Disney Plus on Christmas Day, right?
Yes.
So it makes sense. Turn it into the new holiday classic. Why not? And that way you watch it with the family.
Extended families too, I love that. I knew this episode was gonna be so special. I am so grateful to y'all for coming out, for being the storytellers you are, and for putting so much love and intention out into the world. I can speak for myself and my family, but hopefully for others as well, that we are really all benefiting. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having
Yes. Be sure to watch Encanto, now streaming on Disney Plus, and make sure you subscribe to the Disney Plus YouTube channel to see every episode of Bridging the Gap. We'll see you next time.